Hello and welcome to Last Mixtape Podcast. My name is Stephen White, and on this week's show, we review Silverbacks' brand new album, Easy Being a Winner, and the latest music from the week that was. But first, art must not be constrained in dead shrines called museums. It must be spread everywhere, on the streets, in the trams, factories, workshops, and in the workers' homes. The words of Vladimir Mayakovsky. Why, dear viewer and dear listener, am I quoting a 20th century Russian futurist at the beginning of this podcast? Well, this week we are reviewing Silverbacks' brand new album, Easy Being a Winner, the follow-up to their debut Fad and their sophomore record, Archive Materials. Easy Being a Winner is angular Agit-pop music with a rigid melodic backbone and an undercurrent of textural and literary lyricism. And architectural music indeed. Silverbacks have returned with an album that shows off a myriad of their sounds and a myriad of their textures as a band, whilst maintaining their core and key sound throughout. It is interlocking, rigid, jolting music, the kind of Gang of Four post-punk music that they do, and again, kind of bit of parquet courts and groups like that in it, and of their previous two albums, whilst adding new textures and at times new sounds and new directions for their music to go in. It feels alive, to bring it back to what Vladimir Mayakovsky said. It feels of the streets, of the trams, of the factories, of the home. It feels like it's from a lived-in world and a world observed through the prism of their own experience as a band. Silverbacks create Easy Being a Winner into an album of observations, of looking out at the world and bringing it back in and delivering it to us, the listener, throughout the record. On songs such as Selling Shovels, the opening track, it has that Gang of Four, parquet courts, dance punk, post-punk, if you want to call it that. The meaning of that term is kind of different now than it was when bands like Gang of Four were around, but it has that feeling to it. It has that kind of indie pop gem that could be on one of the big indie playlists or the post-punk playlists, or in then to Giving Away an Inch Of, and the vocals change, which gives a really cool narrative feel to this album. It gives those different aspects, those different voices, those different experience, and goes into that literary lyricism that entangles itself around the interlocking melodic rhythmic elements of Silverbacks sound. It gives something different throughout the record, and that is really good for, you know, listener fatigue, things like that. When you're listening to an album such as this and there's so much going on sometimes, it's great to have that grounding. It's great to have those twists and turns, and we'll talk about a few more twists and turns in the record as well. But having that other vocal in it, having that kind of ability to go one way with the vocal or another way with the vocal, or have different timbres to deliver the album through, it really stands to the music and really stands to the band, and Giving Away an Inch and moments like that really kind of punch through in the album and really give it, that sense of progression throughout. And I think it's a great song. Again, it's kind of intertwined and interwoven with Selling Shovels kind of as a sound, but there's a different aspect to it, and you always feel that Silverbacks as a band are taking their core music, their core characteristic, but able to reshape it and remold it when the song calls for it and when the songwriting calls for it. And that's really key to this record, and I think it's one of the aspects that puts Easy Being a Winner above Fad and Archive Materials in those terms. Obviously, there were things that they delved into on those albums, but here it feels like they've really been able to hone in and really kind of lock into each other as a group when they're doing these things. Hideaway as well is a change in speed and feel on the album, and it really, once again, kind of brings that tone into it, brings that ability to reshape the music, kind of find different ways, different directions to go. So you don't start off with Selling Shovels and end with another version of Selling Shovels. The album is something that can progress and have moments of kind of peaks and troughs and kind of slowdowns and breakdowns and stuff like that. And I think that's really important. You know, sometimes when a band are playing this type of music, there is kind of a feeling of kind of like this for like 10 songs, and it's boom, 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 boom. And while that can be good, that can lose the interest for a listener and stuff like that. So songs like Hideaway really play into that. Then moving on to Spinning Jenny, which when upon listen, I was just like instantly like, oh, this feels almost like a Lou Reed song. You know, it has that lyricism of the observational kind of street mentality, you know, bringing it back to again to Vladimir Mayakovsky and a music that does not just live within the confine of the medium in which it is delivered. And I think this is just very interesting in that kind of way, because I think it has that Lou Reed-esque lyrical rolling. Like even in the vocal that's done, it has that kind of, it's a rolling narrative. There's a lot going on. You have to hang on. And there's characters, there's people, there's the narrator, there's everything else. There's, you know, and it feels like there's a grittiness to it. There's a grottiness to it throughout the album. And it really kind of, this song in particular has that, I don't want to say Velvet Underground because I think it's more Lou Reed. I'm not saying, I'm sure some insufferable people will be like, but the Underground, fuck off. I mean Lou Reed as a songwriter. I mean Lou Reed as the person delivering it. The Velvet Underground aspect of it is different. But in this, it has that Lou Reed-esque kind of nature to it. Spinning Jenny, and it's one of my favorites off the album. But to move on to my favorite and to kind of bring it back into that kind of feeling that the album is not of one thing. It is an immovable feast, if you will. It is an album that kind of takes on different shapes and different colors of Silverback sound more so than their previous material. Billion Star Nightlight, which to me really is the best song on the album and really caps off the album in such a beautiful, beautiful way. It is a beautiful song. It's the best song. It is a meeting of that melodic constructivism and abstractness of their music, the rigidity, the rhythmic nature of it. That's still in play on this song, but it has a far more serene edge to it. Again, vocally, we have that change in a kind of vocal timbre again. We have a different aspect, a different narrator, has a different feel to it, a different performance, but while still very much being Silverbacks the band. And I think Uneasy being a winner, you feel more like the band are serving the songs a hell of a lot more in these ones. And I like the previous albums, don't get me wrong, I thought they were great, but in this one you can really feel that they're kind of interlocking themselves into songs. Now I know they've in previous records as well, Hideaway probably more aligned with that kind of more slower feel to things, but this one, you know, For All the World, it has a balletic feel about it. Upon listening to the record for review, upon the first listen, I dived into this one. That was the one I kind of stopped. I was like, oh, I need to listen to that again. That was so good. Lyrically, again, that kind of lyrical lyricism or literary lyricism of their music really comes to the fore in this. It's a beautiful, beautiful song. And I would argue their best work, if you were to take an individual song out, and I know there might be a feeling to go towards the more radio friendly, the more playlist friendly, which is why I'll never be an A&R man. But I just think this is just so brilliant and so beautiful and such a construct of, you can feel there's so much maturity in the songwriting, so much going on here, and they've learned so much from the previous two albums that they can have moments, brilliant moments like Selling Shovels and Spinning Jenny and Giving Away an Inch Of, that have that danceability to it, that kind of feel to it that moves, and then introduce something like Billion Star Nightlight into it and have something that I don't want to say transcendent, because those kind of shorter moments mean something too, but has a more sprawling, more widescreen feel to it. And this is a song that captured my imagination on Easy Being a Winner the most, and really to me, as I say, is probably Silverback's best work to date. But is Easy Being a Winner their best work to date? Well, I would 100% say to you that you should go check this record out. If you are a fan of Silverbacks, you're going to love so much about this album. You've already probably have listened to a lot of the singles, and you're just waiting for the record to come out. And you know, you're already sold. You're already bought a ticket. You're already sitting in the cinema with popcorn in hand, and you're waiting to listen to the record, and you won't be disappointed, because it takes that element, that characteristic of Silverbacks the band. And I think, again, we were talking about recently bands being able to outmove and outmaneuver the post-punk label and become elements in and of themselves away from it. And I think Silverbacks do that. If you weren't a fan of before, though, interestingly enough, I think you will be here. If they didn't grab you the first time, I think they might on this record. As I say, there's a more mature edge to the lyrical nature of it. There's more mature edge to the musical nature of it as well. They don't sell themselves for that in their album. They don't, like, I don't feel like they're going for that. But I think if you are somebody who maybe was unsure of the other records, I think there are real moments in this that you can kind of latch on to better. Maybe you are somebody where Billion Star Nightlight is a song that you're like, oh, this is really cool, and that kind of brings you in. Hideaway might be, or it might be Selling Shovels and stuff like that, brings you into it as well. But I think there is something for, if you're an indie fan and you're a music fan and you're somebody who watches this and podcasts and watches this YouTube series, I definitely think there's something in it for you here. It's an Irish band making great Irish music, which is great. But more importantly than that, they're just a great band making great music. And I think no matter where you are, where you're watching from or where you're listening from, you'll definitely find something in Easy Being a Winner by Silverbacks. It is out on Friday, October 18th. Be sure to go and check it out because it's real good. Easy Being a Winner, Silverbacks. Yes, dear listener, they seek him here, they seek him there, those musos seek him everywhere. Is he in heaven or is he at the disco? That damned elusive Count of Monte playlist. Oh yes, dear listener, the styling, profile and limousine ride, jet flying, playlist making, son of gun has once again returned to the shores of Playlistia to bring you another beautiful bounty in the form of TLMT's Irish mixtape on Spotify, tracks chosen by the Count of Monte playlisto. Shall we begin? I think we shall. This week we begin with the TA Narrative and their brand new single, Sway. Very interesting, slinky electro-pop song from this duo. And yeah, it's very interesting in its kind of danceability, indie dance, kind of like acid house almost. There's like little bits of, Happy Mondays and stuff like that and thrown in the rhythmic elements of it, and just how it is performed, because it has that characteristic. It embodies the music we're talking about on the Silverbacks record, the song and the music melding into the lyrical and the performative aspects of it. Well, that is very much the case here into the TA Narrative with Sway, because it definitely feels like the performativity of the music and the lyricism and the musicality itself is all intertwined into that kind of slinky electronic dance feel, kind of late night kind of vibe to it. There's very much that kind of sultry nature to the lyrics, and it really, really plays in really well with what is trying to be delivered, what is trying to be conveyed. And I think that really works on this. We've covered a couple of tracks by the TA Narrative in the past. This is very much a... in terms of like sonically and production wise, I think this is a very strong leap into a characteristic that is of themselves and of their music as well. So yeah, Sway, TA Narrative, it's on the playlist on Spotify. Go check it out, or not, or whatever. Check out their music however you want to check out their music. I am not the boss of you. I am merely the Count of Monte playlisto. Next up, we have Skinner with Geek Love from the EP of the same name, 3 tracks. Very, very interesting, because we're kind of playing into the same kind of area as the TA Narrative, but this has kind of got a LCD sound system-esque, kind of the harder edge of LCD sound system. All the rhythm thrown at it, every bit of rhythm, any rhythm you got going, put it on this track because it's on it. And even the vocal has that kind of Murphy-esque delivery to it that is very much of LCD sound system and bands like that. And it's really cool because the EP itself shows off different facets of Skinner the artist, because it has that Tell Me Ma song on it as well. And it's very interesting. It's a very interesting portrait of an artist. It's kind of abstract almost, because there's so much going on. There's so many different facets and sides to his music. So in that way, it works as a real nice taste test of Skinner's music. Geek Love EP is also called the same thing. Check it out. Up next, we have... let me get this right. The X Collective, D Cabaret, Sinita, and Cubana, all coming together on the song Naked. And this is a brand new single from all of those people making music that is, very, very stylistically lush type of song. This is a song with much vocal harmonies going in together, much great songwriting as well, great lyricism, and it's just beautifully produced as well. It's got that real soft, gentle, serene R&B feel to it, and the form is again bringing it back to what we were talking about, the TA Narrative earlier at the beginning, of that kind of performativity, and like just great songwriters and great people getting it together in a studio and really just working to find different layers, different harmonies, different kind of threads, sonic threads throughout. And this is just a great collaboration from all involved, bringing together a great song in the form of Naked, a stylistically lush new single from all of those people, the X Collective, D Cabaret, Sinita and Cubana. Up next, Chalk and Tell Me, and very interestingly, almost as if there's a thread in some way by the count on this week's playlist, we have electronic, industrial, fast-moving, contrasted side to Chalk, and this is coming from an upcoming EP from them this year. And yeah, this is very much a move away from the kind of more isolated, rough, raw, kind of feral kind of music they were making with the vocal and the kind of the post-punk thing. We were talking about bands moving slightly away from that label, and very much so with this one on Chalk. This has got a really hard industrial electronic edge to it, whilst maintaining that kind of domineering kind of vocal performances, just very up close vocal, and all the kind of the claustrophobic nature of the music as well. And it's very cool. It's very of the stuff, very much Chalk still themselves, but adding new layers, new sounds on it. It'd be very interesting to hear on the EP how far they go down that rabbit hole, if indeed this is the beginning of them kind of growing and changing their sound, which they are a great band. They've been covered several times on the last mixtape by the count. They're covered again. They're on the playlist. Go check them out. Next up, we have Sarah Crean, brand new single, Nosebleeds. And yeah, this is to bring it down slightly, to bring it away from the electronic. We are going into far-reaching indie music, and indeed Sarah Crean on Nosebleeds delivers that with a textural backdrop and a songwriting expressionism that meets the production and the sound there found within, and it is beautifully done by Sarah Crean. It has got that emotional edge to it, it's got that narrative to it, a storytelling to it. It in musically has a more kind of contemporary feel to it as well, that kind of brings it into 2024 and what people are listening to. And yeah, I think it's beautifully done by Sarah Crean, a songwriter who continues to impress on the Irish music scene and will continue to do so. You have to feel, because this is a great track, widescreen indie music from Sarah Crean. Check it out, Nosebleeds. It's on the playlist. The Irish mixtape, TLMT's Irish mixtape, as chosen by the Count of Monty playlist. Last up, though, this week from the Count is Baba, Sad Party. And indeed, the Count of Monty playlist loves a sad party. This is very interesting music as well, contrasting, experimental in its makeup. There are so many vocal layers happening to it. I think the contrast as well, like Sad Party, it's almost like a slow down kind of a danceable track, so maybe still interlinked with the TA narrative, Skinner, even the Chalk kind of elements of things, or the X Collective et al. But it's a great track by Baba, and it has the experimentalism to it, and that kind of aspect of musicality that really plays into it, because there's a lot going on, there's a lot of layering and there's a lot of instrumentation going on, and being able to keep that particular cake from not falling in and still standing on its own. Baba has done an amazing job with it, and it's Sad Party, and it rounds off this week's playlist picks from the Count of Monty playlist. So, but fear not, dear listener and dear viewer, the Count shall return next week with another beautiful bounty from the Count of Monty playlist. But for this week, the Count is out of here. See you next week. And so it goes, and there it went. But before I go, thank you for watching and viewing the Last Mixtape podcast here on Apple, on Spotify, and indeed on YouTube. You can subscribe to us and like and comment and do all the things to help the Last Mixtape podcast grow. I'd be eternally grateful. You can also send off your music submissions to the County Monty playlist or via me, Stephen, at thelastmixtape.com, and I'll make sure that he gets them, because as I've said before, he is indeed a different person and not me. I'm not him. But for now, that was the Last Mixtape podcast. You were the listener and the viewer. I was Stephen White. Hey, so long.